Want to have better networking conversations? Try asking better questions. I'm Greg. I'm the Introverted Networker. And today I'm going to talk about 3 different situations where we commonly get into networking conversations. And these can be conversations you have with somebody you're trying to add to your network. It could be conversations you have at work. As you get to know people, as new people start on your team, as you network across the organization, you're going to have some conversations to get to know people. And oftentimes we default to some small talk that doesn't really get into very meaningful conversation. We don't really get to know people. It's very surface. But in order to get into deeper conversations, we want to ask better questions. And what I mean by asking better questions is get something that allows people to really show you who they are. Sometimes, like I said, we stay too surface. We just default. We go kind of with the small talk, what we'll call small talk. I hate small talk. I understand it. I get it. It's safe. It's a little bit of a way to ease into a conversation with people. So I understand the reason for it. I understand why we do it as humans and communicators. As far as networking goes, we're trying to get to a point where we can determine, do I trust this person in this conversation? In order to build trust, we have to get a little bit deeper beyond just the surface. We have to kind of get to know who the person is. And the best way to do that is ask them better questions. I'm going to talk a little bit about a few different questions you can use in certain situations. And I'm going to tell you why I think they work. Now, some of these are ones I've read and things I've come across. So I'll share where I got them from, and you can go check out some of those resources if you'd like. But the first one I've noticed when I talk to people is we all are from somewhere. And sometimes we say, where are you from? That's a kind of a small talk question, but it allows people to start giving us a little bit of their story and their background. I think where you're from is fine. I think a better question you can ask in that situation is, where did you grow up? And the reason why I say that, if somebody says to me, where are you from? I'm going to say Canyon City, Colorado. It's my hometown. It's where I grew up. That's where I was born. And so that's a really closed-ended sort of question in most cases. You can give the name of a city, a town, a country, and that doesn't really tell anybody much. Now, it could open the door and I could say, like, that's a small town in southern Colorado, and, I grew up in a small town. I might go farther there. But a better question somebody could ask me is, where did you grow up? Now, the difference there is I would still say I grew up in Canyon City, Colorado, but if you're opening it up to people saying, like, people who are maybe from multiple places, because sometimes people are born in one place and they immediately move somewhere else and they grow up somewhere else. So if somebody was born in Canyon City, but then they moved to Denver as soon as they were born, they'd say, I was born in Canyon City. Okay, but they don't know anything about Canyon City. So you're kind of expanding it and allowing people to talk more about where they grew up. And they're also probably going to talk a little bit more about how they grew up. They're going to talk a little bit more about their family, about their background, about where they went to school, about things they did as a kid, about how they left, how they moved. Or, you ask, sometimes people are like, I moved all over as a kid. I lived in this place, this place, this place. So why is that better? It broadens the answer into something that allows people to tell you more about themselves, and you get more of an insight. Did they primarily grow up in a certain part of the country? Did they grow up all over the place? Did they have a lot of opportunities to have to meet new people because they changed schools all the time? Or did they just, like me, I grew up in the same place. I went to the same schools for my entire life, right? I never changed schools except when I went from elementary school to middle school to high school. It was all the same people. I never had to meet new people. And, part of that probably lends itself to me being a little more introverted and not being forced to ever kind of get to know new people. So I don't know, maybe not. I had a very specific experience of growing up in a small town, and I wanted to move on to something else. And you get to that and you understand more about me when you ask, where did you grow up, as opposed to, where are you from? You could argue they're probably the same thing, but I find the where did you grow up makes it easier for people to expand on, tell you more about their background. So That's just one thing to when you're in conversations. It is a little small talk-ish, but it still kind of gets you to a point of knowing more about the person. So that's what I would suggest, number one. Number two, this is from Sahil Bloom. So Sahil Bloom writes a newsletter called The Curiosity Chronicle. Comes out a couple times a week. Always great stuff in there. If you don't already subscribe, I would recommend, if you're interested in pieces of everyday wisdom that's really applicable no matter what you do. What he recommended recently is he told a story about having a mentoring conversation with a individual who's basically a finance person in New York City. So this person's all about numbers. They're all about finance. They're all about math. They're all about very analytical stuff. But what he learned in the conversation, just by chance, not because he asked, but she mentioned that she also does stand-up comedy. And he thought, that's unbelievable. This is like two different worlds. Like, somebody who does what she does for her living, I would never expect her to say she does stand-up comedy. And it changed how he looked at her and where the conversation went, because all of a sudden there was this whole new facet of this person that he didn't know before. And the question that kind of comes up that you can add to your conversations, and again, this is whether you're just meeting somebody or even at work, right? If you're at work and you're trying to get to know other leaders or trying to get to know other people on other teams, and maybe you're having that conversation where you've connected and it's not formally about work, and again, you are trying to develop those professional relationships, is what's something most people don't know about you that you wish they did? And it's very intentional that way, because you're giving them permission to talk about something they really want to talk about. The what you wish they did part of it basically says, I don't want you to tell me something that's super personal that you don't want to share. It's like, I want you to tell me something that you really want people to know about you, but you never find an opportunity to share. Not everybody is going to have some big secret, like they have a double life as a stand-up comedian. Not everybody's going to have that. But you're making it safe for the person to say, hey, I happen to be a competitive martial arts practitioner and nobody knows that about me. Or I happen to be, the head of this community organization that has a huge impact on the community, but I never talk about it at work. You have an opportunity to give them, you give them that opportunity to tell you, hey, what's something about you that most people don't know, but you want them to? Because there's some things people don't want people to know, and that's fine. They don't have to share it, but you're taking that pressure off them. Because if you just say what's something people don't know about you, they might be like, nothing. I'm good. I don't really want to share it, right? And so they don't say anything. So you kind of cut it off. But the last part is what that you wish they knew gives them that opportunity. So if somebody were to say that to me, and they said, what's something that most people don't know about you? It would be, I trained jujitsu for the last 5 years. I don't tend to talk about that a lot. I've posted it in some things, but I don't tell most people that. I don't go around saying I'm going to jujitsu tonight. Not because I'm embarrassed. I'm certainly proud of it. It's something I've stayed consistent with for 5 years. I'm not good at it. I'm not competing and winning competitions. I'm certainly not awesome, but I go because I enjoy the challenge and it pushes me. And I think some people will be like, oh, that's interesting. Or, a story some people know about me is, I met my wife at work, but the kicker is we worked on a cruise ship together. So those are some things that automatically change kind of like what people think about me, because you think about me and I'm the introverted networker. You probably think I'm pretty introverted. I am. I can have conversations with people. I enjoy people. I enjoy conversations with people. It takes a lot of energy. But if somebody said, what's something about you that most people don't know that you wish they did? I'd say, I met my wife working with her on a cruise ship. And then they go, oh my God, who's this guy that works on a cruise ship? It comes up all the time. It's in my LinkedIn profile. It's not like I hide it. And people ask me that all the time when they're meeting me. If they've done research on me, they're like, tell me about the cruise ship. Everybody wants to know about that. So I tell them. It was a time in my life when I did something totally different, but it opens up their perspective on who I am. And it gives them a different point of view on me. So that's another good one that either you can ask, or, if somebody says something like, what's something people don't know about you? Just insert the wish you did in your mind and tell them that interesting fact, because you're going to allow them to relate to you more and get to know you on a deeper level. and you're going to build that trust faster with that person in that conversation. So consider that one. The last one is interesting. And so Charles Duhigg is the author of a book called The Power of Habit. And it's a great book if you want to learn about forming habits, which you should learn. That's probably one of the underrated life skills, I would say, that most people don't know how to form new habits and will improve your life dramatically. Charles Duhigg's Power of Habit, BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits. That's how you actually do it. Charles Duhigg will tell you why habits form, but BJ Fogg will say, like, here's how to do it. There's total methodology. Very similar to James Clear's Atomic Habits. Any of those, if you're interested in habits, read those 3 books or one book. Either way. Charles Duhigg has written a new book called Super Communicators, which I've not read yet, which I probably will. But he talks about asking people deeper questions, because deeper questions, again, lead to an establishment of more trust. And he's done all this research on what kind of questions you can ask. And so he says, and this is in a TED Talk he gave that I watched, but I'm sure it's in the book too, ask people, when was the last time you cried about something? That's a really deep question. So use that one sparingly, but he says he challenges people in his TED Talk to go out and ask a stranger that question. You will be surprised, he says. I've never tried this, but he says you will be surprised at how many people will actually tell you when the last time they cried was. And they will tell you all about it and why, and you're going to get this really deep sort of a conversation with them. Again, I haven't tried that one, but again, it seems like it works. It sounds like it's backed up by research. And if you are sort of, even if you're in, again, that work setting where you're connecting with people internally, and you're in a situation where you're all talking about yourselves, I mean, you could maybe throw that out and see where that goes and see how that builds the relationship. But the point with all of these questions is you are trying to get to a conversation where you and the other person are exchanging information about yourselves, adding a little bit more vulnerability. When you're more vulnerable in these conversations, people are going to be vulnerable back, and vulnerability builds trust. And once you have more trust, you're more likely to stay connected with that person. You're going to want to help them. They're going to want to help you, and it deepens that professional relationship. So these are just tactical questions and things to do, but the whole intent is that you get to a deeper level of conversation. Again, whether you're trying to meet somebody to find a new job and connect with them, or whether you've got a job and you're trying to connect internally, all of these questions will help you build deeper relationships. And that's really what we're trying to do in networking, is build relationships. We don't want to transact business. We're not here for transactions. We're here to deepen professional relationships, because that's when your network gets really powerful, is when you have those relationships. Give those a shot, especially if you ask the crying question. I would love to hear if anybody does that and see how that works. But check out, Sahil Bloom, Charles Duhigg, his new book, Super Communicators. I'm going to check it out. If you've read it, I would love to hear what you think of it, and give it a shot. And maybe just at work, in your day job, try out some of these questions and see how it goes. See if you have a better conversations. Go out there, meet some interesting people this week. Remember, always be connecting.